Speed's coverage of another NASCAR weekend kicks off at the Michigan International Speedway, where there is hardly a cloud in the sky and beautiful cool temperatures here in the upper 70s in the Irish Hills area of Michigan. In just a moment, we expect to hear from Tony Stewart about his second driver for his team next year at Stewart-Haas Motorsports. We'll get you there live in just a moment, but right now we're going to take a look at what is coming up on Speed today as we take a look at the menu. We are at the Speed stage where we always get a great crowd here at the Irish Hills of Michigan. Sprint Cup practice comes your way on Speed at noon Eastern time, and the nationwide practice takes over at 1:30 Eastern. Sprint Cup qualifying will set the field for this Sunday's race at 3:30 Eastern, and then nationwide final practice at 5 Eastern. And trackside at Michigan live at 7 Eastern will feature A.J. Allmendinger, who just worked his way up into the top 35 in points, the principal Mike Skinner from the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, and also the veteran senior statesman from the Nationwide Series, Jason Keller. Let's now get you inside the racetrack and join Wendy Venturini, who is standing by as we await Tony Stewart's big announcement today. Wendy?
Good morning, Johnny. We're in one of the press conference room here inside the media center inside the garage area of Michigan. Now, getting ready to take place is the announcement we've been waiting for from Stewart-Haas Racing, the announcement of their second driver. Now, up first will be Mike Arning, the Vice President of True Speed Communications, and also speaking today will be Tony Stewart making his announcement, and Joe Custer. Let's listen in to Mike Arning.
On behalf of everyone at Stewart-Haas Racing, as well as the folks here at Michigan International Speedway, I want to welcome you to this morning's press conference. Obviously, you pretty much know what it's all about, so we'll go ahead and introduce our folks from your left to right. Ryan Newman, Tony Stewart, and General Manager of Haas CNC Racing, Joe Custer. Tony, it's pretty obvious why we're all here today, and it's capped off a month-long bit of announcements, but today another important piece of the puzzle is Stewart-Haas.
Yeah, we were joking about it before we came over here that this was the best kept secret, and I was like, are you kidding me? I don't know that anything that I've done in the last 8 months has been a secret, but this is an exciting day. I mean, it's very important to Stewart-Haas Racing, obviously, and being able to announce that we've got Ryan on board is something that we've all been looking forward to since the day that we first spoke with Ryan and Chrissy about coming over here and joining the team. So we're just more excited to be able to let everybody else know. We know what it's done for the organization once we announced that I was coming over. The flood of personnel that have come over and wanted to join the team since we made that announcement has been huge, and with the addition of Ryan coming on board now, I think is even going to make that list even grow larger. So it keeps giving us a greater depth of people that we have as an option now to get over to the race team and add to the people that we have right now and make this team even stronger than what it was a couple weeks ago already.
And Ryan, this brings together two Indiana natives, two guys with a lot of deep USAC roots. Why make the decision to move to Stewart-Haas next year?
It's just a great opportunity. I think a lot of Tony from a personal standpoint as well as a driving standpoint, and I've seen the success from an ownership standpoint with the USAC cars and the World of Outlaws cars. So I've seen him get the job done in other venues, and just look forward to the opportunity. A hard-nosed racer, and become a good friend as an opposing competitor. So it says a lot about that, and I just look forward to the experience. And hopefully our main goal is that we both achieve our goals, and that's winning championships and both being in the chase.
And finally, Joe Custer, General Manager of the team. Joe, you've seen this team grow a lot in the last month. Talk about this latest development to the operation.
It's overwhelming in ways, to have Tony come on board, obviously, and now Ryan. It's just unbelievable. We welcome Ryan, of course, Haas Automation and General Motors, and all the supporters of our efforts are, key players in this, and we're thrilled. And Tony's led the charge, and it's just the program's growing. It's exciting to be part of it, and to have Ryan part of it. I mean, what we can say, the Rocket Man's on board.
Great. And just a note, Tony, of course, is from Columbus, Indiana. Ryan from South Bend, Indiana. And the two of these guys bring together a combined 57 USAC wins and 45 Sprint Cup wins. We'll make this real easy and simple. We'll open it up now to the media because this is being carried both by Speed and Sirius NASCAR Radio Channel 128. If you can state your name and affiliation, I know folks from the Speedway will have microphones for you. Just please raise your hand and we'll take the time to find you.
Wolfgang Munzer from Germany, Rennsport Press Agency. Personal question to you, Tony. Ryan is joining your team next year from a very successful racing operation, Penske. How hard was it to convince him to join your team for 2009? And how long did it took to convince him to join your team?
We only had to sedate him for about 4 straight days. At which point, you have the subliminal messages that you just replay over in a loop. And after 4 days of that, I was really surprised. It took really well. So, he woke up and seemed to think that the week went by really quick. So, I think the big thing talking to Ryan and Chrissy and these guys was just explaining to them how the organization was going to be. Obviously we're not exactly this year with the teams where we want to be right now, but the big thing was showing Ryan what we're doing, what steps we're taking, how it's going to be different next year, and why I think it's going to be successful. And the thing that impressed me the most about Ryan was he asked all the right questions from day one. I mean, it wasn't the thing with Ryan was it wasn't about. There was never, we've still never spoke about a dollar in the contract. I mean, from day one, the questions that he had for me were all about how are we going to win races? How are we going to win championships? How are we going to get the right people in place to do the right jobs? And those were the questions that really impressed me the most with Ryan is, it was first and foremost about how he was going to run and how we were going to ensure that we were going to give him quality cars and equipment and people to surround him to give him that opportunity.
Joe Menzer, NASCAR.com. Ryan, I just wonder if you had any reservations coming to a new team after being with an established team, and also, could you give a little background? I mean, how long you and Tony been friends? I mean, were you friends when you started out, enemies? What maybe turned the tide there, and how your friendship has developed?
I'd say the biggest reservation, kind of happened back in Daytona when we won that race, and I was in a situation where I was talking to Roger about the contract, and it didn't really materialize to the point that it didn't. Period. And from Tony's standpoint, he was announcing his plans, and I was in limbo about my plans, and things kind of just came together. And as far as answering the part about Tony and I's history, from racing USAC midgets, Silver Crown cars, he was, I'd say, 2-3 years ahead of me as far as where his curve was and moving up and getting to NASCAR and racing in what was then Busch Grand National Series. And I went to him for advice. He actually, I don't even know if he remembers this, but he asked me to come out to an IRP test one day when I was down in Indy, just when he was racing one of his nationwide cars then, just to come out to and be a part of it as somebody that knew where I was and where I wanted to go and where he was and where he was going. He's always been a friend. He's looked out for me, and that said a lot even back then.
Ed Hinton, ESPN.com. Tony, could you talk a little bit about the sponsorship situation for Ryan's branch of the team, and also as a sort of a second part, in your new role as an owner, are you finding that sponsors are very gettable even in this economy for the right team, or are you seeing effects of the economy too?
We're all seeing effects of the economy from the sponsorship side, obviously, but there are sponsorships available. It's just finding the right packages and the right combinations instead of seeing one company come in and just take the whole car. You're seeing a lot of deals being made where organizations are sharing the car over the course of a year, and I think that's something that you'll see a lot more of in the future. But we're currently working on sponsors for Ryan's car. We were hoping to have them done for today, but we didn't get it done in time. So, hopefully in the next couple of weeks we'll have something locked down on that side. But it's just making sure that we put the right partners together, and versus selling it to one sponsor. When you're working with multiple sponsors, it's making sure that you have that continuity between the two to make it work for both parties. So it makes it a little harder, and there's the process is a little longer to get the contracts done with them.
Are you close enough that it's just down to fine details on the...
I'm not sure we're down to fine details yet, but we're getting close.
Ryan, this is Bob Hawkers from NASCAR Scene. Can you tell us what other teams did you talk to? Did you seriously consider other offers, and why? What about this made it better than the others?
Yeah, without naming names, I mean there were an easy 3 other teams that made me offers on offer sheets, and to answer the second part of that question, it was mostly Tony. Obviously, I saw the shop, I saw the backbone in the foundation that Haas had laid with their efforts, and talking to Tony and his people, it seemed to be the best decision for the right reasons, and that's what I was all about. I always said I felt like I was fortunate having options, to have that option to go to what I thought was the best place to do the best thing for me and my long-term goals. So, when Tony's situation came to light, and those things became more public, it was easier to understand those things for me.
Allison Bourne from X6 Sports in Lansing. Tony, 10 of your last 12 Sprint Cup races have been top 10 here at Michigan. What are your thoughts right now going into this weekend?
I'm excited. I mean, obviously the last 2 weeks we've had runner-up finishes, and that's the kind of momentum that you want getting ready to go into a chase. So it helped us a lot with the points last weekend. It was more than just a second-place finish for us, but obviously when it's a place that you've had some success at, and we haven't had a lot of wins here, but we've had a lot of consistent top 5, top 10 finishes. So right now, and with the situation that we're in, being I shouldn't say comfortable, but we're in a little better spot than we were a couple weeks ago, obviously, in the point situation. Having a good race this weekend would be very huge to us. So, obviously, getting to run both cars this weekend, I'm excited about, trying to help continue that streak with the nationwide side and that team, and at the same time, maybe hopefully getting our first win of the season here this weekend.
Ryan, Lee Spencer, Fox Sports. How hard has it been, or how frustrating has it been for you to be in an organization where you have one of the most successful owners in all of motorsports, but he's kind of an absentee owner? And now you go to a guy who's just like the ultimate wheelman, the ultimate racer, looks out for other racers. I mean, did that have a lot to do with your decision to have a guy that you knew is as devoted as Tony?
Absolutely, and I think if you look at the history of Roger Penske, and Roger didn't have the ultimate stats that Tony Stewart does, but Roger is a racer. He was a racer, and that I think is extremely important to me, to have somebody that understands the driving part of it, the ownership part of it, the teammate part of it, the personnel part of it, which is extremely important nowadays. That meant a lot. So yeah, it was Roger. I still have a lot of respect for Roger, and look forward to the rest of the season fulfilling my obligations. But I definitely see the true racer and the potential future businessman in Tony Stewart.
Tim Wolford, AutoRacing1.com. Tony, I see a bunch of new team players. Obviously, we recognize Ryan and some of the PR people here, but there's a lot of team to be put together. Can you have any comments on where you're at putting together the rest of the team at this point?
Yeah, we've been in a lot of meetings in the last 4 weeks with a lot of different people from different organizations that have come to us, want to be a part of this, and Joe's been a huge part of that. It's just talking to the right people, and it's like I was telling somebody, you don't have an option until you have at least 2 people, and we've had more than that in a lot of categories that have come to us, so we have options with people. It's just now sitting down and trying to figure out, just like what I've learned from Joe Gibbs Racing and Joe himself, sitting down and taking the time to figure out which of these people is the right person, making sure that we're picking people that personality-wise are going to match and work well together, and just being smart about it, and that's where Joe comes into play with helping out with that, and like we say, it's nice having options, and with the announcement today, hopefully even more people are going to come out and want to be a part of the program because of Ryan, and that just gives us even that many more options and people to choose from, hopefully. But it is coming together. I mean, we are getting people hired. We have commitments from people that we're currently working on contracts right now that are some key people that we think are really going to be able to help us build this program.
Travis Brown, USA Today. Ryan, I wondered, how does this change your relationship with Penske Racing, and if it does, how do you reassure them that this year that things are going to continue how they've been, and granted that you're lame duck status with the team?
Easy. Don't knock him down.
When Roger and I shook hands and saying that I wasn't going to come back, he knew from my standpoint that I was going to be the dedicated driver I've always been, and I will do my best for myself, most importantly, but as well as sponsors and Altel and Kodak and people like that have obviously been a big part of my career. So I focused just as much on driving the number 12 car as I will be next year driving the number 4 car. And like I said, I still have a lot of respect for Roger. I believe Roger still has a lot of respect for me, and we'll continue on. And as I said to Roger, it's going to be business as usual, and that that'll end at the end of 08.
Brett McMillan from PRN. Tony, when you look at where these teams are right now, you're not guaranteed a spot in the top 35 for next year. How important was it to get a guy who's a great qualifier in that second car?
Well, that wasn't as big a factor as just knowing that, we've got somebody that's as passionate about our program as we are, and somebody that we know is going to be competitive every week, and that's something that Ryan's already proved in his career in the Cup Series. So, obviously we're working really hard to keep Scott in the top 35 right now, and that would ensure that Ryan doesn't have to do what he does best, and that's go out and sit on front rows and poles and everything. But we're trying to work really hard the rest of the season to accomplish that, so we don't put that pressure on Ryan. That's something that is really big to the organization right now, that we do everything we can to keep that 66 car in the top 35 in points, and let him worry about going out and racing, not worrying about going out and qualifying the first 5 weeks.
Claire B. Lang, XM Satellite Radio. A couple of quick things. Can you address, I think the two of you are going to be fun to cover because you both had the same dry sense of humor, how you told Tony that you were going to do this, and also what you think about the number 4 and whether, numbers are a real huge deal to you.
Well, we just we sat down at the shop. We talked about it, signed the paperwork, and I told Tony, I said, the bottom line is I'm here to have fun. I want to have fun with you, and I know he wants to have fun doing this, and that's what racing hasn't been a whole lot of for me lately, just due to the fact that we had success in 02 and 03 and part of 04, and since then it hasn't been very, as successful, and therefore some of the fun is gone with that. And I look forward to having fun again, and I forgot the second part of your question. The number 4, I know what that means to Tony Stewart, and I have numbers that mean more to me than the number 4 does. But I'm here at Stewart Haas Racing, and I respect the number 4 and his decision. And he told me it was his first go-kart number, and that means a lot to me because I have some of my first race cars with the number 43 on them, which obviously are notorious here. So I look forward to representing that number with this team.
We don't have senses of humor. Very dull, quiet people, both of us. So, no, the thing is there's going to be a lot of work involved in what we're doing here, but at the same time, I mean, we've got a teammate now, and we got an organization that realizes that, the first couple of times we walked in the shop, everybody was pretty tense around there, but the more you go around there and the more you laugh and joke around with the guys, the more relaxed they are, and the more you see the intensity on their faces going forward. And, to see somebody like Ryan and me around there each day, I think it'll be something those guys will like, and Ryan likes to fish. I like to fish. We both raise baby deer, and we have a lot of common interests. So, I think this is something that we're both going to have a lot of fun doing. The competition side will probably be rougher with us going fishing than anything. It's probably going to be the toughest part of it. So, and the first time that he gets me in a boat and gets me out about 50 feet and says, "All right, we're fishing for paychecks today," I'm swimming back, and if I drown, you guys will know what happens. So, but we're going to have a lot of fun with this, and that's something that is important. I mean, as hectic and busy and tedious as the schedule keeps getting each year, and it grows, it's not got easier, it's got harder every year. To have somebody like Ryan on board that we know we're going to have fun with, that makes you look forward to going there and doing the work each day.
Stan Creekmore, Inside Track Motorsports News. Ryan, two names I'd like to know how they influenced this decision: Matt Borland and Chrissy Newman.
Good question, especially since she's sitting in the audience. Matt Borland, I talked to him a couple times on and off. He's still a great friend of mine. Obviously a super technical person, and has obviously a huge influence at Stewart Haas in respect to the race cars. So, he was off the record a good person to talk to, and I appreciated his input. And Chrissy Newman obviously was my sounding board at the house, and she would elbow me about somewhere between 12 and 5 in the morning at some points, just to wake me up and talk about what I wasn't doing. And she was typically more stressed out and high-strung about me making my decision and having a lot of input with that decision. So she was very helpful to me, and no different than my parents who helped push me through college. She helped push me through this situation, and I'm very grateful for that.
Marty Smith, ESPN. Ryan, how much that was well done, man. How much did the removal of Don Miller from the day-to-day workings at Penske change your perception of the company, or maybe even devotion to the company?
Don Miller is a great friend, always has and always will be, and that did change some of the things. That didn't change my ultimate decision. It had influence on it, without a doubt. People are a big part of what makes the race car go fast, and how much fun you can have in doing so. And I definitely missed him from Penske Racing, but we still have our ties with old cars, and just definitely enjoy his friendship still. But it made a difference, but it wasn't the ultimate reason by any means.
Jim Utter, Charlotte Observer. You both have talked about the importance of people. Both of you will be looking for crew chiefs. Can you just talk a little bit, Ryan, about what you'd be looking for? And Tony, are you any closer to finding someone?
For me, it's and I can kind of speak on Tony's behalf as much as he does mine. It's about us having crew chiefs that get along together, and as a group, between the drivers, the crew chiefs, race engineers, they have a common chemistry. So a lot of that's up to Tony and the people at Stewart Haas to make those decisions. But obviously, I want to have the input to be able to have somebody that I can personally get along with, and we'll address that situation as it comes.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's kind of where we're at right now. I mean, we're working to not get just one crew chief. We're working to get a pair of crew chiefs that like Ryan said, are going to work well together. It helps us work together better as drivers, and keeps the organization just that much more intact. And I've seen multi-car organizations that the crew chiefs were in different directions with each other, and they don't utilize the opportunity of what a two-car team's all about in the right way. So we're going to rely on Ryan's input as much as anybody's, to make this decision. It's got to be people that we're both comfortable with on both sides. I mean, he has to be comfortable with who's going to be my crew chief. I have to be comfortable with who his crew chief's going to be, and I think that's just going to make us that much stronger. So this gives us a unique opportunity to do that. I don't think there's a lot of teams and organizations that have had a scenario where they get to go out at the same time and go after two crew chiefs. So maybe this is something that will even be that much better for us.
Dustin Long, Landmark Newspapers. Ryan, with drivers commonly seen as leaders of a team, what is your role, or how do you foresee your role changing or developing with this team, in the sense of this is a team that certainly has a lot of room to grow? Are there certain things that you're going to have to do more of as a driver than what you've had to do? Or how are you going to have to change with the change of job?
That's a good question, and I think a lot of it's unknown. I think the more successful the organization and the team is, the less the driver has to have that input or, give that quarterback leadership, let's say. And, it's going to take some time from a building standpoint, from a personnel standpoint, to be where we want to be, as far as the chase goes and championship contending teams and organizations. So, I want to have that influence. I want to have that communication, and I want to, be successful with Tony and with the organization in doing so. It's just a matter of the right time and the right place, just like anything else in the world.
Won't that be at the beginning of this process? Right?
This is the beginning of the process. Just like Tony said, there are going to be people that hopefully, after Tony announces I'm here, that will want to come be part of the organization, and that is just one of the first. That is the concrete for the foundation, let's say, for building, a perfect team, perfect organization.
Bob Pockers, NASCAR Scene. Ryan, when did you sign this? How long does it go until? Did you get any ownership, and do you have any guarantee that Matt Borland will be back next year?
Should you write that on paper so I can answer it?
What kind of crack are you smoking? Is it pot grass? Is that the last name?
When did I sign recently?
It was under the 4 days that he was.
Yeah, I'm not sure I was coherent when I did it. But, no, I signed it just recently, and we have had discussions for the last little bit, but obviously I had a lot of discussions with a lot of other organizations the last little bit. So, I couldn't tell you a day that I decided, and all that stuff. But I forget the other 4 questions you had.
Any ownership involved?
Any ownership involved? Not on my part. I do not know the status of Matt Borland's contract / agreement / where he stands with the team. So that would be a good question for Matt. What's that? How many years? I'm 30.
God, going to the media center is a hell of a lot more fun now.
Yeah. It's a multi-year agreement.
Multi-year agreement.
Travis Brown, USA Today. Just wonder, does this change your guys' relationship at all on the track for this year? I mean, Ryan, if you see the 20 come up, you going to be a little easier on him passing you or anything?
I don't think we've ever been like that, have we?
No, not really.
Obviously, we're not going to work against each other, but we're not in a position to work for each other either. So it's the right time, right place, give and take type situation. No different than it ever has been.
No, it's business as usual. I mean, it's just about respect out there, and we've always had respect for each other, even though we drove for different teams. So now that we're going to be on the same side next year, that respect won't change, and it'll still be there.
David Newton, ESPN.com. Any chance you could go over to Haas this year for the final 10 races or any point? And also, how deep does your history go together? Did y'all drive for the same owner in USAC at all? Steve Crisp, I thought I saw a Newman bumper or something in the garage there.
I'm contracted and, fulfilling my contract with Penske Racing to do what I've been contracted to do for the rest of the year, and that's drive the number 12 Alltel Dodge and try to get in victory lane and win races and do all those things. And as far as previous ownership, I think there's only one person that I'm aware of that we both drove for, and that was Steve Crisp. Yeah. That was in a sprint car, USAC sprint car.
He drove all that stuff after I tore it all up, and I'd moved on to another team. He got to drive all the bent stuff.
Any other questions for either Tony, Ryan, or Joe? Yep, in the back.
Ryan, and this one just kind of popped in my head.
Oh, boy.
This will be your first opportunity to drive for Chevrolet, and this organization has the connection with Hendrick Motorsports. So how do you feel about, number one, the first time ever with Chevrolet, and number two, the fact that you're not just going to drive for a new two-car team, you're going to drive for a team that has a very strong relationship with a very successful organization.
Yeah, the Chevrolet part of it I'm excited about. Obviously, Tony is super excited about it, and it's a new deal for me. So, I look forward to putting the Chevrolet in victory lane. And with the tie to Hendrick, it's obviously soon to be a good thing. That's, part of the reason I feel it's going to be successful, and I look forward to, driving what currently even now is a Hendrick car at Stewart-Haas Racing.
And are there any other questions? We do want to try to wrap up. Jimmy Johnson is next in here for his media availability. Yes, Mr. Johnson.
Grab a seat.
Any other final questions for our guests? Great, everyone. Thank you very much for your time. A transcript will be available later this afternoon. The press release will be sent electronically.
Is Jimmy Johnson's question going to be on the transcript?
Absolutely.
Yes.
The mic speed is still live, so I don't know if there's anybody, whether it's Ryan or Wendy, whatever you want to get. Right. Speed still.
Okay, things are just wrapping up here in the media center right now. Tony Stewart making the announcement that his second driver for Stewart-Haas Racing will be Ryan Newman beginning in 2009. That was a multi-year contract. They didn't give too many details of the contract, but I think what's interesting here is it's a huge day for Chevrolet, because not only do they have Tony Stewart coming from a Toyota team, but they also now have signed Ryan Newman coming from a Dodge organization. So big day for Chevrolet, and a big day for Tony Stewart, making another day of progress with signing Ryan Newman, who will be driving the number 4 car as announced. So we're going to try and get a few moments possibly with these drivers, but they are shuffling them out. Jimmy Johnson's coming in, and the next press conference, Johnny, is starting to get underway.
Wendy, thanks a lot. Now, that's a pretty potent 1-2 punch now for Stewart-Haas Racing, with the 10th best qualifier ever in Ryan Newman, and also a 2-time champion in Tony Stewart. Now, if you look at that on the paper, that they're outside of the top 35 right now and may go into next season the same way. It's a pretty good situation to have one of the best qualifiers ever in Ryan Newman and a guy with a past champions provisional in Tony Stewart. But also, Wendy, if you look at these guys and the way they're putting together their organization, obviously Tony Stewart learned something from Joe Gibbs, who always says you don't win races with cars, you win races with people. Tony Stewart has obviously taken a long time, Wendy, to put together the right people, and I think that he found the driver that he really wants.
Yeah, it's no surprise that Ryan Newman, Tony Stewart, they have a relationship beyond this garage area, and it goes back in time when they raced together in USAC and have their experience. They're both from Indiana. These guys are true racers, and to have their personalities match up together is going to be interesting on the racetrack. We will hear from Ryan on Sunday on NASCAR Race Day. He is the real deal for this week, so it'll be interesting to find out what he has to say. But nonetheless, this was a huge opportunity for Ryan Newman and a big step, and it's also a challenging opportunity. I think it's got to be said that there are going to be some challenges. They still have to form a team. They're close to naming a sponsor, but didn't have that quite in place for today's announcement. So we're still going to wait to see what kind of sponsors will be on this team, but we definitely know it's Ryan Newman for Stewart-Haas Racing in the number 4 for 2009.
Wendy, thanks a lot. So a big announcement for that team. A couple of Hoosiers driving together and a couple championship contenders going over to form a new team next year under the name Stewart-Haas Racing. Certainly will be exciting to watch, and they both said they have definitely the interests of their current teams first and foremost this year on their minds to get those teams in championship contention. Let's take another look at the menu, see what's coming up today at Sprint Cup practice at noon Eastern Time. Nationwide practice, then qualifying for the Sprint Cup Series. Nationwide final practice at 5, and then trackside features A.J. Allmendinger, Mike Skinner, and Jason Keller. We'll be back at noon to kick off that Sprint Cup practice here on Speed. Thanks for joining us.